So Brad, what is the movie besides the movie that we're inevitably going to talk about tonight
So,
that you're looking forward to seeing this coming movie holiday season?
so, coming to theaters near you is the movie called The Disaster Artist. And I wanted to do an episode with Jason before Disaster Artist came out, just because it's got so many fans and cult favorite followers on the back end of this movie. So I thought it'd be nice to pay tribute to this movie a little bit.
I mean, you're not wrong about that. This movie is all over the internet. You can't. I mean, you can't type in the into Google without the room and the disaster artist popping up practically.
Exactly.
And the room itself is actually for today's standard a fairly old movie. It came out in 2003.
Yeah, it did. It was a while ago. I watched it once about 2006, I believe, maybe 2007, and I haven't seen it since. But sometimes randomly, it just pops up on the internet, and I was like, "Oh, god damn it, this thing!"
Well, I mean, if you say randomly popping up the internet, we can't not mention the fact that Jeff, who we tried our damnedest to have here tonight, was one of the first ones to mention the room to me in our Can't Hardly Wait episode about the summer movies that were coming out, where he mentioned the Artist, which I guess must have gotten pushed back because he was expecting. I think it was actually just 2017 we were looking forward to movies. Um, but yeah, I had no idea about the room until he had mentioned that.
So I'm sure you've heard about The Room, but what are your predictions, or what are you thinking of going into watching this?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I did do a lot of research because it's a rare thing on Absurdist Asylum, at least this format, where we know what the movie is before we go into where both parties know what the movie is before going into watching it. And I felt it would serve me to have a little knowledge about the movie. So I'm not gonna lie to you. I know 90% of the plot points of this movie. But I don't think it's the plot. I mean, the plot points play their part, but I do not think it's the plot points in this movie that are what make this movie notable.
From what I remember, you know what? I'm not even going to answer that question. We're just going to have to wait until we come back after the movie.
Yeah,
I want to see, I want to hear your thoughts right after the movie without me saying a damn word.
I mean, I am fully prepared to loathe and laugh and cry and cringe. And I will be joined by Lizzie, who has said she wants to watch this movie. And let's remember, she sat through Kuso, so this will be a real test of her patience.
Oh, okay. I'm excited to hear both of your opinions.
So, um, well, I guess if we're gonna hold off that hard, would you like to just get right to it?
I think that would be exceptional.
All right. Well, look forward to watching. Dare I say it? Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
We really want this show.
Hey, welcome to Absurdist Asylum. Thank you for joining us at Absurdist Asylum. My name is Jason Velarde, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Brad Kussey. And today we're talking about Tommy Wiseau's The Room, also followed by a quick segment on the Disaster Artist. So thanks to everyone who saw that with us. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Absurdist Asylum, and absurdasylum@gmail.com is our email address. And also listen for Franco-Eyed by the Dirty Heads, because I think James Franco did a great job of capturing Tommy Wiseau's look.
Hey, should we do a shot before we start?
Yes, let's do a shot.
Hello, and might I say, what an exciting thing it is to be part of a cultural phenomenon.
It's fucking yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, this movie is what would happen if a guy who only directed pornography in the 80s decided to direct like a romantic dramedy in the 90s. And I really am mad at myself for using the word dramedy, but that's the only way to describe this.
Yep, that's exactly what I put as well.
A dramedy. It's like it almost it brings to mind the image of elephants, and I'm not quite sure why that is, because I'm pretty sure the word I'm thinking is dromedary camels, and that's not an elephant. But this movie went for it all, and I mean, and so I will say this: it is not as bad as I very much expected it to be.
Yeah, actually, watching it a second time, I like it was pretty bad the first time, and then watching it a second time, like it was still pretty bad, but not bad enough to where I wanted to turn it off.
Yeah, I mean, I sat through this probably easier than I sat through 50 Shades of Grey, which is ironic because the sex scenes in this were probably worse than a 50 Shades of Grey sex scenes.
Oh, for sure.
So
It's a lot of laughing in these sex scenes.
and not only was it laughing, but it was like they did the same sex scene verbatim twice.
Yep, I noticed that too. They use the same shots.
Yeah.
I actually wrote down how many sex scenes there were, and I thought about taking a shot every time there was a sex scene, but then I thought, no, I better not do that. I'll be too fucked up.
Yeah, instead you just jerked off, which is what I did, so.
Oh, I did. I'm glad you had the same idea.
Okay, yeah, no. Actually, that's not quite what happened, because Tommy Wiseau, despite, I will say this now, I think that everything that I've heard about this movie gives him less credit than he deserves for this movie, which is an odd thing to say. But he's like, this movie's mostly ruined by his acting and a lot of his directing. But this movie is not as bad as people would say. But as far as jerking off goes, Tommy Wiseau is not a good-looking character. He looks like John Travolta had a baby with Slash, and then that baby got hit by a truck, and then had extensive plastic surgery to repair the damage. Like, I'm not quite sure where Tommy Wiseau is from, and neither is the rest of the world. But Poland is probably the best guess.
I was thinking somewhere in like Norwegian. I actually think he looks like a melted wax figurine
Of the baby of John Travolta and Slash?
Sure. Like if you had a figurine doll or like a plastic doll that looks like a normal human being, and then you just put it next to the fire a little bit too long and then whip it out real quick, that's what his face looks like.
So let's not dig on Tommy Wiseau too much. I mean, I've seen The Muppet. It's not flattering. So the thing about this movie is he is quite secretive. I don't know if you know much about him. Not many people do. What do you know about Mr. Wiseau as far as where he came from, where he grew up, what he did to earn his money? Because let's not forget, he paid $6 million of his own money to make and advertise this movie.
So there's not a whole lot that I do know about him. I was more just interested in the film. I mean, I know that he has other films. He's got like 4 or 5 out there that have pretty bad ratings as well. Like, I don't think he's ever had a 5 on Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb. I know he is foreign from somewhere. You can definitely tell from his accent.
Oh, really? Really? I wasn't aware.
In case you weren't aware, he is foreign. I did know that he paid for this out of his own pocket, but I never figured out where the money came from. And I know that is what is talked about in The Disaster Artist. So I didn't want to research it and ruin it for myself. I wanted the movie to explain that when I watch The Disaster Artist, and then I'll research it later.
So, assumingly that I'm not 100% confident in my answer, I did do a deep dive on this. Do you want to plug your ears and say nah this whole time, or are you okay with me at least taking an educated guess?
No, but go ahead and take an educated guess, and then when we watch Disaster Artist, we see how close you were.
So, from everything that I can gather, which was basically a synopsis from a private investigator / paranormal investigator, so we'll see how this turns out. I'll post the video when we post the episode. But apparently, he earned his money selling bird toys near the bottom of the Eiffel Tower, and the name Wiseau, which everybody knows is not his real name, but does not know his real name, comes from the French word "oiseau," meaning bird. And so he eventually became known as the Birdman, selling these bird toys near the base of the Eiffel Tower. Stores in the area started to buy his bird toys. And then after he made enough money, he started buying and selling real estate, which landed him in San Francisco, where he currently owns a building that's quite Googleable. And basically, once he started buying and selling real estate, he came across this idea to start going into acting and then financing his own movie because he had amassed his own fortune, $6 million worth of. But there are hefty people on the internet that say that's all bullshit and he's Polish royalty. He does admit that he is from Europe, as per on the Jimmy Kimmel episode, and he also admits that he grew up, but lived in New Orleans before he got to San Francisco.
Okay, I didn't know all of that.
It's I mean, the guy's a character, and it's probably the most ironic part about this is that his character in the movie is, I wouldn't say far and away the worst part of the movie, but he's not the strongest actor.
So, talking about his character, I actually wrote down a few things. So, throughout the whole movie, he is a victim of Lisa, and that Lisa is the protagonist, the girlfriend who cheats on him. So, I actually kind of got an understanding of Tommy's character. To me, Lisa seemed like one of those gold diggers. We know in the film that she runs like an online business. We don't know what it is. We don't know exactly how it works. But apparently, it's not very successful because she's always at home drinking. It seems like
it's like, what is the repute of this house? Ill.
Exactly, and then
that's a Simpsons joke. But I know what you mean, and literally the third thing I wrote down was, wow, Lisa is way more dark than anything that I've ever watched about this movie has led on.
Yeah, the first time I watched it, I mean, I was pretty young, but I didn't quite understand it. Now that I'm older, I just hated seeing Lisa. My God.
She was clearly the protagonist, and there's at one point where one of the characters who she's fucking, we'll get to that in a second, I'm sure, calls her the devil, and granted,
yes.
This person is fucking her, and he calls her the devil, and he is not wrong in any sense of the word. Like, if Tommy Wiseau is not an actor, he's in fact a director, and he can create an antagonist, and this antagonist was blonde, and Lizzie was 90% convinced that it was Anna Faris in the first couple minutes of the movie.
Hold on. What was I just about to say? Oh, I was just going to say that I think I just said it earlier, but Lisa is definitely the, like the gold digger type. She's only with Tommy the whole movie because she used to love him, but now loves somebody else. However, her mother doesn't, like, she says, "Oh, you should like do what's right and tell Tommy you don't love him anymore." But she doesn't. No, not one person in the whole film tells Tommy, and there's like 6 people in the film that know she is fucking around.
Even get me started about fucking Danny. You know, Danny is a psychopath and a sociopath, and I'm 90% sure he's murdered somebody outside of this movie. I'm even pretty positive he could have been one of the extra Scream killers in the movie Scream.
That is a good possibility.
Yeah, no, this guy straight manipulated everyone through every step of the movie, and it was downplayed to a fault, which doesn't even bring to the surface what was downplayed in the movie. There was a breast cancer diagnosis. There was a like semi-robbery / almost execution. There was almost a best friend throwing another best friend off of a building. And then there was a fucking actor replacement. I don't even know how to call it. Like, there was a psychologist wearing glasses who was like blonde and slick back. And then he was gone. But there was this like brown kind of almost shaggy haired dude that was buddy with everybody that nobody had seen before.
Yes, I actually wrote down that characters appear from nowhere without a backstory or real ties to the story. Randomly, they just pop up and like they've been there the whole time, and they have no significance in the film, whatsoever. Like, they just show up and they're like, "Hey, I'm here now," and then everyone's like, "Oh, great," and then they continue on the story, or lack thereof story.
Well, I feel that it was, if not a drastic oversight, it was an effort to like portray the fact that Johnny's like everybody's friend, and Johnny being Tommy Wiseau, who at basically this point in the movie we know that his fiance is cheating on him with his best friend, and his fiance is in fact the fucking devil. I think we covered that, but so at this point, Johnny's like buying her flowers and petting dogs and speaking without moving his lips because it's the worst dub scene in existence when he's buying the flowers at the fucking shop. Hi, dog.
So yeah, I wrote about that. There is a lot of ADR dialogue that doesn't match the dialogue he delivered in the scene, and it seems to only be him. I didn't catch a whole lot of the other characters having ADR'd.
So you're right, and it's actually, that's probably the most distracting part of the movie, is that his mouth and his mannerisms do not match the things that he says. And then also, like one of the most quoted scenes in the movie, where he throws the water bottle down, and it's like, this is the disaster artist to a fucking trailer. Is it says, "I did not hit him, I did not," and he throws the thing down. It's like, not, but the audio is perfectly matched to the movement of his lips, but it just looks and feels and it's just like everything inside me is saying that's not real.
It's the way he delivered the line, because the line is, "I did not hit her. I did not do it." Or, that's not exactly it. Hold on, let me redo that. It's "I did not hit her. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not."
And that is the one that's like sends it home that like this is fake. And then the scene where that happens, the green screen is noticeable but not terrible. But on the same rooftop in a different scene, where, like we said, somebody tries to pretend to throw somebody off of the roof, like threaten to throw somebody off of the roof. It looks like they're in the goddamn post-apocalypse, which gives me an interesting theory about this movie, is that the only reason we see anybody outside of this room is because it's like the high rollers club of the apocalypse, where it's like you can come in and pretend to be a different person, and Tommy pretends to be a successful banker with an awesome girlfriend, and everybody comes there to party, and then suddenly the shit starts to unravel.
Yeah, I even went as far as saying that a lot of those moments, like on the rooftop, uh, I'm still trying to figure out why they toss a football so goddamn much in this movie.
Well, here's the answer to that. And I wrote this down. Hey, Brad, I have a joke for you.
Oh, what
How
is
do
it?
you pad a movie about Americans?
Go on.
Football!
You think the NFL? You think he went to the NFL and said, "Hey, I'll put a football in my film if you finance it," and they said,
Not a
"No, get the fuck
chance.
out of here."
No, the $6 million went entirely to drugs and alcohol, despite the fact that his character did not drink, and his girlfriend, and I quote, his fiance, and I quote, said, "Here, drink this vodski," is the only way I could describe it. Whiskey and vodka. Whiskey.
That's what it looked like.
That's it. That's exactly what the word I was looking for was whiska. But yeah, she poured him a glass of whiskey and then set it down in front of him and then poured presumably vodka into it and said, "If you love me, you'll drink this," despite the fact that he clearly hasn't drank in a long time.
Oh yeah, I think her idea was to get him tanked, and that actually part kind of makes
Well,
sense because
she wanted him to hit her.
that was her intention. But I think there was another part of why she did that. So the scene just before that, I believe, is the mother. Lisa is telling her mother that it's he's boring and there's nothing eventful about him. So at first I thought she was trying to get him fucked up to have a good time with him, and then at some point she decides, I'm going to tell everybody he got drunk and hit me.
Well, that just goes to the point that we've mentioned several times before, is that Lisa is in fact the devil, and she should have serial killer psychopath babies with Danny, American Horror Story style.
Did you notice that every time she mentioned that she was hit by Tommy quite a bit, right? At least 3 or 4 times to 3 or 4 different people, but not one of them seemed concerned about her well-being. She said something like, he had a couple of drinks and then he hit me, and then the other actress or actor would just deflect that like, okay, whatever. Like, if somebody came
Well,
up to me and said, my boyfriend's hitting me, I'd be like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, we need to figure this out. Not, well, Tommy's a great guy. He pays for all of your bills. You should stay with him.
all right. Well, this just goes to show the dynamic between the characters, because that conversation was between the mother and her daughter Lisa. But then in the same conversation, the mother says, "Oh, I'm for sure dying because I have the breast cancer."
Yeah.
And Lisa's like, "Yeah, well, my boyfriend's boring, so I think that my conversation's more important." And then the mom's like, "Yeah, you're right. You're lucky you've got a good man."
And then she said, doesn't the mother say something about, yeah, I'll be fine. Like, breast cancer is nothing.
Right?
Like, it's a cough that'll go away in 2 days.
It's probably a cough that will go away in 2 days, Brad. You don't know.
I don't know breast cancer.
Brad don't know breast cancer.
I have so many notes on this.
Oh my God! So this movie goes on where it becomes more and more evident to the main character that his best friend and his fiance are sleeping together, and then at a certain point in the movie, and if I'm wrong, it was at the like birthday party that this whole movie was building to. The fiance Lisa says, "Oh, or no, I'm sorry. The Tommy Mark, Mr. Wiseau says that Johnny Wiseau, I'm sorry, Tommy Wiseau, the character Johnny, says that, oh, me and Lisa are expecting." And I was like, wait a fucking second, did I miss something? I've been watching this fucking movie so hard. It just goes to the point of all the plot lines that this movie missed. The drug dealers, the breast cancer, the like start of where this baby came from. Although we did not miss any of where that baby came from. I'm pretty sure that, as I was raised to believe, that you put your willy in the girl's belly button, and that's where babies come from.
I was just about to ask you about that. I was watching the sex scene the first time for
What were
sure.
you?
I was watching it. I was watching it hard, and I was thinking he's pretty high up there on her. Is he fucking her belly button? Like I've seen I've seen I've been behind the camera, and I know that there's a thing called cheating to camera, and it's a term used for when you have to get two actors close to each other or into a certain area and make it look like they're doing a certain act.
You gotta force
without
perspective.
There we go. That's a good way to say it as well. But I don't know how you cheat that, because he was like straight up on her stomach and just giving these weird, awkward moans.
Well, and it
laughing.
kind of goes to the legend of this movie, is that this guy decided, no, I'm going to make the movie, and I'm not going to wait for anybody to fucking put it in my lap. This is what I'm going to do.
He has to show his ass to sell this movie.
Oh, well, that's why every Absurdist Asylum episode goes out with a encrypted picture of my ass. So all you computer hackers out there, you know what to look for. Wait, did I just say that out loud?
Oh, no.
It speaks to the nature of this, is that, you know, we wanted to hear podcasts. We enjoy podcasts. We went out and did a podcast. And Tommy Wiseau was not afraid to go out and make his movie. And watching all the things I did about him today gave me a certain amount of respect that I didn't want to come in and tear this movie apart, despite its many flaws. This man went out and tried his damnedest and did it over and over again. He's done documentaries and action movies and 90s porno, 80s porno dramedies. And it's you got to hold a certain amount of awe for this man for going out and doing what he wanted to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not everything that a director or actor does is going to be gold. You know, it's still a learning curve that you have to get over. And I was pretty impressed that he funded the whole thing and decided to you know, I don't know if they were professional actors. They might have been like actors who are just trying to put together a reel to get promoted into other movies, because I don't think a lot of the talent was very good.
Well, the guy who wrote The Disaster Artist was actually been in a couple of things I've seen before.
Oh, okay. But yeah, he went out and did it. Yeah, it might not have been the best thing, but it's more than I can say for myself, because I haven't invested $6 million of my own money into a film, and I'm still in film school. I'm sure my first feature film is probably going to be utterly dog shit. So I can't say that I could go out and do better. So I would never trash him for that. However, I do wish he was less humble about the movie and let somebody else play his character. I think it would have been a little bit better if Tommy was, you know, had been casted another actor, or maybe a more professional actor. But, you know, some directors like to put themselves in their own movies, and that's totally fine.
Well, I mean, that just goes, I mean, that's got to be Taika Waititi's secret pleasure, is putting himself in his own movie.
Right, and that turned out very well.
And it has from Eagle versus Shark to Thor Ragnarok. And you have to think, this is what I'm actually very interested in, is I know Tommy Wiseau was involved with James Franco in making The Disaster Artist.
Yep.
And I also know that Tommy Wiseau and, hold on, I have his name here.
Greg
Sestero, are making a movie called Best Friends in the very upcoming future. It's supposed to come out in July 27, or not July. It's supposed to come out in 2017. And he was the Mark character, the guy who was cheating with him, who was in fact best friends with Johnny in the movie. So there, like you said many a time, I heard you say it, they're capitalizing on an opportunity, and I can respect them. And it was, have you seen the movie Accepted with Justin Long? And
Yes, I have.
yeah, he was in that movie as one of the frat guys, Greg Sestero.
Okay, now that you say that, I kind of remember.
Did I say fat or frat? Because I meant
You
frat.
said frat.
Okay, I'm fat.
Yeah, I mean, jumping on the bandwagon, that's just smart to do.
So, and it's like, I mean, it would be very cliche to a lot of people to kind of like capitalize on popularity, but I mean, goddamn, my favorite movie, Star Wars, is doing it. And I was trying to lead you into Star Wars earlier when we were talking about what movie are you looking forward to, but you can't wait for The Disaster Artist, and neither can I after watching this.
It grows on you. I mean, I think you said it earlier, but this movie has been classified as the Orson Welles film of Citizen Kane of bad movies. And for the listeners out there who don't know, Citizen Kane was a movie way back in the day that directed and starring Orson Welles. It was very good. It was black and white film. It had a lot of noir to it. There's not one bad thing about that movie, and that's considered one of the best movies of all time. And then you take that film and compare it to this one, and everybody calls it the Citizen Kane of bad movies. And honestly, I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, I think the directing probably could have been a lot better. The acting could have been better. The scene structure was all over the goddamn place. But overall, I don't think it was nearly as bad as people say. This is one of those times where a movie is carried by word of mouth. One person doesn't like it, so then that person watches it, and then they don't like it because of what the other person said, and it carries all the way out throughout the whole world, or whoever has seen it.
Well, all right. So let's talk about first things first. I did not say that this was the Citizen Kane of bad movies. You were quoting somebody else to me because I've heard that elsewhere myself. But,
I've seen it all over the internet, but I would not say that's justified.
So, second, like, yeah, you're right. This movie has gotten way more ripped apart than it deserves because of the fact that it became so popular for being bad. And so you get channels, I won't name them, but you get other channels just like looking for that edge. What's the worst part about this movie? How many sins has this movie committed? What's wrong with this movie? Like you get broken down, and it's like, all right, this movie was a real attempt by a real person who has what would call a cult following, and there's plenty of amazing cult movies out there. Like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is something that was very unknown for a long time until maybe about 10 years that it came out 10 years after it came out, and then it blew up and it kind of became a cultural phenomenon for a couple years. And there's been plenty of movies like that. Doctor Strangelove, How I Learned to Love the Bomb and Stop Worrying. Like there's been plenty of great movies that have been cultural phenomenons, and this is just we're watching one evolve in front of our very eyes.
Oh, definitely. And there's, like I said earlier, this movie is not nearly as bad as most people would speculate. I think it's definitely one of those you have to watch it to see. And if you don't, it's not for everybody. Movies have a target audience, and some people don't fit the target audience for this movie. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it just because of, and I will say that I'm bandwagoning on this. It's
and so you're absolutely right. It's 100% the lore around this movie, like the upcoming making of movie featuring James Franco and Seth fucking Rogen. Like, it's the lore around this movie that makes it appealing right now. But watching it, like, it's not as bad as people have made it out to be, which makes me excited for the, like, mockumentary that is The Disaster Artist.
Oh, for sure. I'm really excited to see that. Um, Diving back into the movie, though, I did write down that. Have you ever seen the soap opera Days of Our Lives?
Jesus, you've met my stepmother apparently.
Have you met my mother? My
uh,
mother would watch this
are
TV
you my
show.
stepbrother, Brad?
Oh my God, are we related?
We might be. You're my high school nemesis, and we're related. It's like a
Oh
goddamn soap opera.
no. Wait a minute. So, did we just become best friends?
Dude, we just become best friends. You
Do we
sound
need to
like.
go do karate in the garage?
So yeah, I'm fully aware of Days of Our Lives.
So I said this was basically a soap opera that turned into a film, because it seems like a lot of the events that happen that aren't really big deals, but turned into like very dramatic scenes, like when they're in the attic throwing the football around and Mark tosses the football to that weird character who was having sex in Tommy's apartment or Johnny's apartment. I don't remember his name. But then he falls into a section of trash cans, and it's like, oh my God, are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital? And they just dramatized over that whole scene. And I thought that was hilarious. They went
Well,
over the top of that part.
they dramatized and glazed over the scene.
Oh yeah, completely.
Well, and so they did the same thing with the like robbery, the drug robbery, where the guy was holding him up for the money that he owed him. Is they were like, oh, we got this guy, we're taking him to the police, and then literally seconds later they were back and said, he's in jail now because he's a bad guy, and we took him to the cops apparently.
Their apartment must have a jail cell.
So my theory about the apocalypse reigns true is that they're super mutants, and he just, as soon as he exited that rooftop, he flashed him, the Flash, DC Marvel, and got him. I don't know why I said Marvel, but got him to the police station quick flash and in a hurry.
Oh yeah.
So
The I also liked the blocking of the fight. Do you know what blocking means? Are you
no,
familiar with that term?
no. Not only do I know what blocking means, Tommy Wiseau, if not anything, this man knows his blocking. Did you see the scene where he was like setting up his audio recordings to catch his girlfriend in the act? He's
Oh yes.
staring at he's like sitting right by the stairs, and he says, "I know that something's going on. I'm going to set up a recorder." And then he takes a bunch of extra steps to get his blocking just right, and then sets the recorder down. Tommy Wiseau is a professional, and he knows what blocking is.
I thought it was pretty funny. Uh, if there was one good thing about this movie, it was that, well, the lighting was really good. So the gaffer, kudos to the gaffer. The TP did a great job. I felt a lot of the camera shots and movements were justified and
Oh yeah,
motivated.
and there was some beautiful of the city shots. You know what I mean?
There were a lot of city shots as well. They had to cut away to the city like a lot.
This shit's like The Hills, but with a better storyline.
Exactly. Uh, but yeah, there were some good parts of the production side. I thought it was done very well. It did seem like it was still of a sitcom or soap opera nature, but the production side was very well. Really, the only thing that I think fell flat in the story or in the whole film was the story and the acting.
Well,
I
and you're right. Like, there was clearly a production budget, which you couldn't say for certain movies. Like, I mean, I would say this was better than Insane Money, or Big Money Hustlers by the Insane Clown Posse. It was better than that, only for the fact that
Had more of a budget.
it wasn't the Insane Clown Posse. Well, yeah, and they had decent green screens. They just chose a weird way to pull that off.
I mean, I've only done green screen a couple of times. I do know it is a real bitch to get perfect, and if it doesn't look perfect, it doesn't look good. So there's a reason why a lot of directors and production houses stay away from green screen. But with a small budget, like $6 million is not a lot. I mean, movies nowadays are coming out with damn near $1 billion production sets and budgets, and that's where it's looking good. It's all about that money.
Well, the most fucked up part about this is that his best friend tried to warn him that he was talking about how girls can be unfaithful and change their minds, and he tried to warn him what was going on.
Yeah, he was foreshadowing.
But then also, he says to Lisa after they just got finished fucking for the first time, he says, "Why would you do this to me?" But that fucking scene, it definitely looked like he was doing it to her. Which brings me to a director question for you. Is it good cinematography to shoot through the stair railing, and are those characters in a prison of their own lives at that moment?
I thought it was kind of just like that, actually. Let me back up on that. So that's a subtext point in filmmaking. There's a lot of scenes that have subtle subtext, and then subtext that's right in front of your face. They were committing an act against Johnny, and then putting them behind the staircase railings, making them look like they were being hidden or in a jail cell, secluded them in their own little world completely. And then, with using music and sound effects as well, that helps sell that scene. Directing wise, I actually thought that was a smart choice because there was actually quite a bit of subtext in the film, and I thought they made good use of it.
Yeah, I mean, nobody would be being honest if they said he didn't know, have a good idea of what he was attempting to do.
And sometimes, the director and the cinematographer or director of photography or DP, all the same term, will collaborate on how they're going to shoot a scene. And sometimes, if it looks cool, they might just do it just because it looks cool. However, there is a quote saying that I've learned in the film school is, don't film it just because it looks cool. It has to motivate the scene, because every shot needs to push the story forward. But I actually thought that was a good scene that they did behind the railing.
Yeah, Michael Bay, you heard it here. Not everything has to be robots and explosions.
Did you know that Michael Bay has a term coined after him called Bayham?
That does not sound wrong.
So, have you seen Bad Boys? I don't know if it's 1 or 2.
It has to be 2. The scene where they're driving down the bridge and boats and cars and shit are flipping after them.
Well, that's part of Bayham, because Bayham is kind of a broad term. But the most notable Bayham or Michael Bay shot is where a character stands up and the camera goes 360 around them, either fast or in slow motion, in a really dramatic standing up position. Have you ever seen that before? They did it in Bad Boys 2. I think they do it in Avengers.
Bad Boys 2, that's when they're done pretending to be KKK members in the first scene, and they throw off their white hoods, and they're both dual-wielding guns, and the fucking camera spins around them, and it's Bayham.
Yes, that is the exact point of Bayham. But yeah, just a little movie trivia there for you, or information.
Learn something new every day, folks. Brad, this was an absolute crazy movie. It was intriguing and insane at the same time. Do you have anything else to say about The Room?
I do. Actually, I have one last comment, and it's about Lisa.
Uh-huh.
So strap in.
Oh, strap on.
Here's a question I want to ask you. Do you think Lisa has sugar-flavored nipples? Because it seems like everybody wants a piece of her. I mean, I counted at least 5 people that were head over heels for her in this film.
Well, I have a theory that Danny and Lisa are just psychopaths, and they're just trying to manipulate everyone around them, which is about the most solid theory about this movie. But at the very least, nobody minds if you're giving it away for free, you know? I mean, Johnny had to propose, but Mark was an investor, I guess. So I don't think sugar-flavored nipples is the diagnosis.
Okay, Dr. Jason, I guess we'll have to reevaluate the patient and see what we can come up with.
I mean, a reevaluation is up to another doctor. We'll put it that way.
Maybe she has the breast cancer like her mom.
No. Yeah, that's a possibility. It could be possible. That could be why she's going buck wild, because she can just sense it. And she's like, nope, not getting married. I'm going to fuck everybody.
Everybody until my last breath.
All right, Brad, well, I enjoyed it. Do you want to come back in a couple of days and give it another go?
Let's do that. I think that'd be funny.
All right, we'll be back. All right, so we're here at the Denver Hard Rock. We just walked out of the Disaster Artist. I've got our good friends, Nathanael, Makenzie, and Mark here, along with Brad. Mark, I hear you haven't seen The Room. Oh, hi, Mark. What did you think about the movie?
Well, hi, Jason.
Oh, hi.
It's a funny movie, that's for sure. But it also shows different characters, and it's actually kind of interesting. It goes actually very deep if you think about it.
For sure.
I did like the depth of it. It was way more inspirational than I would have ever thought, being a James Franco and Seth Rogen movie.
Totally, that's definitely what I thought.
Yeah.
This movie has been kind of we'll say a meme around where we hang out. We won't bring that place into it. But so that's kind of why we all decided to get together and watch it. Did we have any first impressions, Nathaniel? What'd you think?
So I had just watched The Room literally 45 minutes before the start.
Within the hour.
Yeah,
So
within
there's
the
no
hour.
food? Not to interrupt?
I think we're good, yeah. Oh, no, I don't think we're ready to order.
Okay, gotcha.
Are we going to order anything? Okay. So,
First impressions. I didn't even know. So, let me think here. Tommy Wiseau is kind of a hero, honestly. Like, that's the most inspirational thing I've ever seen, ever, in a sense.
I think that was kind of the point of the Disaster Artist, is that he wanted to prove himself the hero, and he wound up making himself the hero. Brad, I know that we've talked about The Room plenty of times. What did you think about the Disaster Artist?
I loved it. I mean, I would watch it again right now if we had time. It, like Nathaniel said earlier, it was inspirational.
I would say it's like a thing, yeah.
It tugs at the heartstrings a little bit, quite a bit actually, throughout the second act. And I mean, there's a reason why it was nominated for sure.
It won the Golden Globe just a couple days ago.
For sure.
Makenzie, you kind of fueled the memery around the office,
Oh, yeah.
as far as throwing out Tommy Wiseau memes and things like that. Did this movie live up to your expectations?
Oh yeah, so I saw the trailer of it like months ago, and I knew Brad was in the film, so I brought it up to him. I said, "Have you ever seen The Room?" And he explained it all. I was like, "Oh yeah, this is the shittiest movie." So, so I looked in deeper to it, and I listened to all of his interviews, and I I thought this guy was so cool. So I've really been looking forward to seeing this movie, and it totally lives up to my expectations.
I'm glad we all decided to go. It was great to go see the friends, and it's great to have new people, new faces on the show. This movie, it seemed like it meant a lot to James Franco, and that kind of transferred on the screen. And it meant a lot to a lot of the other characters. They had a little montage of people, famous people, who had nothing but great things to say about the weird, kooky character that Tommy Wiseau is and what that meant to them. Did this movie like speak to any of you guys? Have any like deeper meaning?
I think the fact that he just like doesn't care about, he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't give a house.
Doesn't give a damn.
He just.
Really doesn't.
What a cool
Well,
story.
and it seemed almost like he did like really give a damn. But the Tommy Wiseau we know today from the person he was during the making of The Room, it seemed like they're two different people because he took himself very seriously, and now he kind of knows that the reason people love him is because you can't take the guy seriously, but in the same sense, he's a person to be adored. Because he's such like a nice guy, although he's very mysterious. We talked about that earlier on the show. Nobody really knows where he came from. They kind of hinted at it in the movie. There was a picture of him by the Eiffel Tower, and then
This could be Photoshop too.
well, and it probably was a fake picture, but there's a thought that he made his money starting out selling toys underneath the Eiffel Tower to tourists and such, and then he built up to a jean business, which built up to whatever The Room became, which I don't know how you get $6 million out of jeans. I guess it was the 90s.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Brad, as far as filmmaking goes, did this movie capture the process of filmmaking in any shape or sense?
Yeah, they had quite a bit of jokes in the production of the movie. They were talking about how like the lighting between digital and film is different, but Tommy says that's okay. We shoot them both anyway. That's not accurate at all. You would go bankrupt if you tried to shoot them both in the same way at the same time. But in the production, Tommy says put the two cameras together, and so there's a film camera and a digital camera right next to each other, and like my inner like filmmaking side of me was like, oh god, this is just gonna go off the rails. But it didn't.
I mean, thinking about doing it digital and analog, it gives a special effect. If you really do it, if you don't have the cameras next to each other, if you have a little different angle, you could really mix up and match it together and make really a nice, interesting feature out of it. Some scenes maybe digital and some analog.
I would bet to say that if you watch the movie very closely, The Room, you could see which scenes or which frames were digital, which ones were film.
That's what I using to research this some Jason. Do you know like what they ended up doing? Like, did they just sort of like?
I was actually just thinking that myself. I wonder if the one that we watched, it seems like it had to have been digital because it's on YouTube, but there is a way to take film and get it to digital. So I'm not sure. I would be very interested to find that out. I don't know if we ever will, because he's such a mysterious character. But yeah, you talk about just the sheer tenaciousness that it took for him to grab onto this idea, and that's kind of what I wonder with how close is it. I have to read The Disaster Artist now. I have to read the book, but I wonder how close is it to how he actually got the idea where Greg just says, I wish we could make our own movie, and Tommy's like, yeah, let's do that. Yeah, that's a good idea, Greg.
I bet part of that's pretty true though.
I would imagine it's potentially accurate.
I wonder how much of it is actually, very accurate.
Yeah.
Or if it was all just kind of for show.
Well, Tommy Wiseau signed off on it, so I would say at least 90% of it might be accurate.
He was for sure part of the production.
There might be some drama that they made up to put in there just to keep the story up, but I'm sure a lot of it is
because if it's true, then there was a recording from the backstage.
Yes, I'd be interested to see that footage as well.
The BTS, yeah.
Yeah. So
because that's definitely that must be the one which gave the idea of making that movie to have the material.
So the best part about James Franco's performance was the fact that he could mimic the eyes. Like you've seen the poster for the room. You've seen the room. No, Mark hasn't seen it, but his eyes. There's something not quite there. They mentioned something about an accident. I don't know if you guys caught that. I wonder if that had anything to do with his, proposed accent, and then his look and demeanor. I mean, whatever it is, it's great. Keep doing it, Tommy. But James Franco had the eyes down perfect, and he was very believable as this person that, after doing all this research on Tommy Wiseau, I've seen him in YouTube clips where he plays video games, interviews on late night. I feel like I know the guy in a certain sense. So to see somebody else portray him so well was great.
I was talking to Brad at the very beginning, and I leaned over and I was like, I wonder how they do the eyes like that. I wonder how he did his eye.
My guess would be they had a contact lens because James Franco's eyes are not naturally blue. So I think they offset one of the eyes on the contact lens as far as it would. So it gave that illusion that Tommy has that weird separated eye look.
Yeah.
It's not cross-eyed, it's reverse.
It is
that would be called.
Not quite cross-eyed, and it's not quite
Inverted.
lazy-eyed. But one eye is a little more squinted than the other. But before we go on too long about the eyes, I appreciate you guys being here. Let's throw your water glasses. Thanks to the Hard Rock.
Cheers.
So you
Have a great night.
there, man, five souls. We taking out full throttle. Let's go.
Get it good like a big bad wolf when you're lost in the woods. Put teeth in a beat like it's rocking a hood with the clothes of a sheep. And I wish you would try to find me like you wish you could. Roll real deep and it's understood. We getting real fucked up and I'm feeling real good. Gotta carry me home. Underwood.